What's up, guys? Mike Lewis here, and welcome to the Mike Lewis podcast. If you guys want to keep up with me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lewis Official, and you can follow me on Twitter at MikeLew52. It's where most of my updates come. If you're enjoying my content, give me a like and a subscribe. And without further ado, let's just dive right into this episode. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for tuning in. And if you're looking on your screen, allow me to introduce my guest today. You might remember him from that show, Real World Seattle, Mr. Nathaniel Blackburn. How are we doing today?
Mike, I'm doing good, man. Your viewers are going to have to be older to remember when I was on the show. It feels like it was an eternity ago.
How weird was it just now to hear being introduced from that show?
Man, it's not weird. It's definitely a little bit more foreign since it's been so long, and I haven't really chosen to stay in that around that environment. I left that environment back in 2004. Yeah, the last thing I did with MTV was the first Gauntlet.
Yeah.
And I was at the height of my addiction during that time. I'm in recovery now, but that was kind of the beginning of the end for me in 2004 with drugs and alcohol addiction.
Oh, wow. So is that what kind of made you step away?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even, it just took my life over, to be honest. The last show I shot was the Gauntlet. And I mean, I was up for 3 days doing cocaine the 3 days before we shot that. And went and did the show, and I still kicked everybody's butt. But at the end of that show, I got back home, and it just got really dark really quick after that. And I moved from LA and moved to Colorado and ended up getting my butt kicked in Colorado for a number of years until I got my third DUI and was facing jail and the thought of suicide. And so I reached out and asked for some help, and eventually got my stuff together and got sober.
So how long have you been sober for?
6.5 years.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Yeah, it was a long road to get there, for sure. But that's why, I mean, I stepped away from that industry altogether, because no one would, first of all, work with me, much less I was undependable. I was just a mess.
So were you still getting calls after the Gauntlet to go on challenges, or?
Not at first, because I made an ass of myself, like on the Gauntlet behind the scenes, partying and drinking with producers and castmates. But a couple years after the Gauntlet, I started getting calls again. I've gotten calls the past few years a lot, as people at Bunim and Murray and other friends of mine have seen the turnaround and what I'm doing in my life and stuff. Now, somehow I pop back up on their radar.
Yeah, especially with this current situation. They've got all these new shows in motion. They got this all-star show that's up and running now, and then there's a Real World Homecoming that's they've went and revisited the first season, which was in New York. What do you think about that?
Oh, I thought it was great, man. I think people, I just think it was such a big deal back then. It was such a different beast. No one had ever really seen anything like that before. I mean, even up to my season, we were still the only reality show on TV, so there was nothing to really compare it to. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I got on the show, and the immense fame and notoriety and opportunities that came from that. It was crazy. And I think people want to know kind of what us castmates are up to, or it brings them back, people in their 30s, 40s and 50s, like some nostalgia around it. And people are interested, people were invested in who we were as a result of the show, way different than reality TV is today. I mean, I still have people come up that remember me and talk about how they watched me in their childhood and they couldn't believe that I was with that girl and that Stephen slapped Irene. It was just like this real life drama that wasn't fake. And I think people knew that. And so they called us to do the reunion as well, Seattle. And not all of my castmates were willing to do it. That's why we're not doing it right now.
For Homecoming, that is.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
we were the second highest rated season ever, and I didn't know that until MTV just recently, a few weeks ago. We were on the phone, and they said we were the second highest rated season they've ever done. And I was like, that's surprising. And that's why they reached out to a handful of casts, and we were one of them. And they're about to shoot one right now that I can't talk about, but I know which one it is.
Uh-oh. Well, I know which one it isn't, because recently I've been speaking with most of the original Las Vegas people, and those are...
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that one's currently a little at a standstill right now because they got one opt-out, but...
Yeah, that was with us. Everybody but one, maybe two, I didn't speak to, but we had opt-outs as well. It's pretty unfortunate, and it's not who you think it is.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm
There's
sure.
I thought it would be a slam dunk, and they were the ones that said no.
Where do you feel like you and Vegas stack up? Because those are the two OG seasons I feel like that are neck and neck. When it comes to rank.
I think I love Alton. He's a buddy. Love Trishelle. But I think we were two vastly different crews. I think, to be honest, I just think we were more relatable and real. And Vegas was more, I'm going to do whatever I need to do in front of the camera to make it hype. That's just what it felt like.
So you don't think that they were authentic, or?
No, I do, but I think that, like, we didn't care about the cameras. Like, we weren't trying to make something. We weren't trying to manufacture a career. I'm not saying everybody on that season was doing that either, but it felt like, and I don't mean to call out Vegas because, man, I love those guys, and I'm not saying them specifically. I would say after Hawaii and San Diego, it changed. And I think if you ask any other cast member, if they're honest with you, that were on those first 10 seasons, they would say the same thing. It's just different.
Yeah, I've seen your season kind of referred to as one of the darker seasons of the real world, with a lot of what transpired. Would you say that that's a fair assumption?
Yeah, dark might not be the right word because I don't think there was like an overt darkness to it, but I will say that our season set the bar for contracts. I can tell you that because it was a bunch of firsts. So no one had ever had physical contact before our season. Drinking and drugs hadn't been an issue until our season. So I guess dark is kind of dark. But just a lot of stuff. I mean, we learned how to turn our mics off and bounce. We only had two-way pagers, so we didn't have cell phones. But we had these pagers that were supposed to be with us at all times, and they could contact us through that. We learned pretty quickly that if we turned our mic off, they couldn't track us, they couldn't find us, and we'd escape all the time. I can't tell you how many times they would have to sit us down and go, look, the show's not going to be good if you guys keep ditching us. Man, we're here just to follow your life and show everybody what's going on. And David and I were just sneaky, and I remember a month into the season, because we shot for 6 months back then.
Yeah.
And a month into the season, one of the directors pulled us aside and said, hey, man, I know you're high, like smoking weed, and we can't show that. So just, hey, how about you don't do that? And David goes, what do you mean you can't show that? And they're like, well, MTV won't let us show y'all hi. And David was like, great, and then, proceeded to smoke pot whenever he wanted to, knowing that they couldn't show it. And as soon as somebody would pull out a joint or something, the camera crew would just literally go, kind of turn the camera off. So yeah, it was dark, I guess. It was fun, is what it was.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll segue into more of the topics, but I want to start off with you by asking about what you were up to prior to the real world, what you're doing, and what kind of led to you auditioning, and then your process itself.
Yeah, prior I was in college. I was at Virginia Military Institute. Excuse me. I had just gotten back from living overseas with David, my roommate, who also went to college, went to the same school. And while we were over there, we got a chance to see filming of a major movie called Les Miserables with Claire Danes and Liam Neeson. And I remember just being blown away with how cool it was watching them shoot this movie. And we got to spend some time with Liam and Claire and the cast after shooting one day. And I was just like, man, I want to get into the film business, but how the heck do I do that? And that was kind of laying in the background. We get back from Europe and we're in our senior year at school, and a flyer was on my desk when I got back one day from school, and the MTV was going to be in person in Richmond, Virginia, taking open calls for the real world. And I was like, that's it. That's my way in. I had a pretty traumatic childhood. At this point, I hadn't dealt with any of it. But I knew that my story was sensational enough to potentially get me on the show with my mom, my dad, and all this stuff. And so I drove into Richmond and went to the open call and sat down with 2 beers and 2 shots with the casting director, and we had a blast. And then it took, it's 7 to 9 more interviews over the course of 3 months. Stuff where they would ship me a video camera, have me set up a video camera on a tripod and on speakerphone. They would ask questions, record my reaction, send it back to them. They came out to VMI once or twice. They flew me out to LA once for sure, maybe twice, but it was a process, man.
Wow. Yeah, I was curious too. I saw that with obviously you and David being from the same, you guys were in the same military bases?
Same college, Virginia Military Institute.
I was curious because I don't think at that point since that point, they've done anything like that where they've taken 2 people within the same, environment and stick them on the same season with. There's only 7 people, so right then and there, that's 2 people that already know each other. I thought that was kind of unique and interesting. Why do you feel like they did that?
It was. They've never done it since. It was so unique that we had to change the intro to the show. So typically, this is the story of 7 strangers picked to live in a house. Ours was, this is a story of 7 people picked to live in a house. And they've never done it since. I don't know, man. David and I were just such a duo of friendship, and he was real crazy, and I don't know what I was. And I think they just were, I don't know, it just worked. It was, we had no idea. We're buddies. We lived together in Europe the semester before, and I had no idea he auditioned for the show. And he didn't know I auditioned for the show until they put 2 and 2 together when we got down to semifinals. They were like, hey, do you know David Burns? I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I love him. We lived in Europe together and we go to school together. I was like, how do you know David? They're like, well, he auditioned for the show as well. And I'm like, this is great. Put us on together. And, yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't just cast one of you guys when they found out you knew each other.
Yeah. Well, I think it was just a different twist to the show.
Yeah, and they ended up returning to Seattle for the last season of The Real World with a twist, and that ultimately is referred to the season that killed The Real World, believe it or not.
They went back to Seattle? I'm totally out of touch.
They went back to Seattle. This was 2016, and they had a
Oh
season.
wow.
They called it Real World Seattle Bad Blood was the tagline. So they had 7 roommates show up, and then about 2 weeks in, they brought in 7 more people, and each person that was being brought in had like some type of ties of bad past with the original 7. So then they ended up leaving 14 cast members in the house, and they cut the
Oh wow.
season. Yeah.
Well, that sounds terrible.
Well, I mean, just on character development alone, with 14 people in the house, they just had so many moving parts, and it was so hard to get invested in storylines when there's
Yeah.
so many people there. It's just very unrealistic to think that. So,
Interesting.
yeah. How far have you been out of the loop with what goes on now these days?
Man, I haven't watched the Real World probably since Vegas.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just life, getting sober and things are different. I've realized as I'm getting older, I've got limited bandwidth, right, in my mind and things that I want to spend time on, and the news and stuff like that has just been one of those things that I've just disengaged from. The more political it becomes, the more fear based it becomes, the more fill in the blank. I just uh, disconnect from reality TV. I mean, I've got a couple guilty pleasures that I'll watch. My wife makes fun of me for, but MTV is just not MTV. I don't think anymore. I mean, when we were doing it, and we were on it was different. I just am 40, about to be 45 years old. There's nothing on MTV and that I'd want to watch. And the challenge, like that all changed too. Um, and I just kind of disconnected from it. I think probably had some guilt and shame too because I imploded opportunities that were in front of me where I could have kept doing that stuff like CT and those guys and um, but like I said, I blew it up with the drinking and the drugs and all that stuff.
It's definitely turned over a new leaf. I'll say that. With this new All Star Challenge, I've seen a collective sigh of relief and gratitude because the current show that's on MTV now is almost like unrecognizable from what I'm gathering.
Yeah.
But CT, you mentioned him. He's actually still doing the thing. He just turned 41 and he's
Oh
won.
yeah.
He just
I know.
won.
And I love CT. He's a buddy and man, I love to see what he's doing. He's made a career out of it.
Yeah, good for.
Um, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. You still CT? His cousin's actually David. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, of course.
You still keep
Yeah, I
up
mean,
with it?
I talked to David a week
Oh
ago.
wow,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I talked to Mark Long last week and Cyrus, and I'm still connected with a handful of guys that was close to. John Brennan, Norm.
Are you getting any calls for this All Star show? That's
Oh yeah, yeah. I got a call. I got called for the first one, uh, and the one that they're planning now. But
yeah. Were those accepts for you or?
uh, yeah. My wife and I talked about it, and uh, we talked about it. There was an accept, uh, but it's not up to me. I think there's been a lot of accepts out
Yeah.
there.
This is
Uh,
the
that
long.
that the first cast was interesting, um, and so we'll see what happens with second season if there's a second season.
Did you tune into the first season?
Yeah, of course. A couple of my buddies, like Mark and Cyrus and Alton, and but yeah, I mean, especially after watching it, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'd
You
go in
get
there and
that?
dominate, man. I mean, I'm about to be 45, but I would still kick their ass.
Oh, hear that, people?
That's right. I'm throwing it out there, Mark. Dude's a
I want,
beefcake.
yeah. Let's dive back into real world a little bit though. So
Yeah.
you came onto this thing obviously having the girlfriend, and that played a big part of your story. Would you give advice to any potential future cast members to don't go on the show with a girlfriend, or would you have done that twice?
Man, you don't know what you don't know. I truly loved her. I thought I did, right? If there is such a thing as love at 21, right? Um, I mean, look, here's the deal. If you're going on reality TV now, what's the motive behind you going on reality TV? I think that's the first thing I would question anybody who's doing it. Um, if you're doing it because you want to get a career out of it or something like that, then you know going on with somebody you love, if you know you're not going to be faithful to them, it's kind of selfish, right? And so I think the first question is, why do you want to do it? Um, I wanted to do it because I thought it would open doors for me back then. Plus, at the end of the day, it was like, dude, I'm gonna get to go live in a city I've never been in. We're gonna take an awesome trip because back then you did like one big mega trip, and who wouldn't want to do it? And I wouldn't change anything, man. All the stuff that I went through brought me to where I am today. I run a men's ministry here in Dallas, Texas, in long term recovery, married with two twins on the way, and I had to go through all that crap to be where I'm at today.
Were you excited going to Seattle, or were you hoping for something else?
Yeah, man, I had no idea. Like I'd never been out of Virginia other than going to Florida once for or twice for family vacation, and then my first plane flight was 6 months before the real world, flying to Europe to live in the Czech Republic with David.
Yeah.
And so Seattle, like there was no, the internet was still like a pretty foreign deal. So I remember in 98, like they sent a letter and said, "Hey, you're going to Seattle," and I'm like, "Oh, Seattle, let me." I remember getting on dial up and getting on the internet and typing in Seattle, Washington, and like this janky website comes up and the Emerald City, and I see this Space Needle and I'm like, "Oh, awesome. I've never even been to the Northwest." It was cool. I had no I mean, it's to this day, that part of the country is my favorite.
Wow. Well, that's nice to hear, being a Seahawk fan. So,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Seahawks, huh? You might have heard of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
don't. Yeah, I've heard of them. I like to put them out of my mind. You know,
Yeah, that's okay, man.
brings back some bad memories.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's just put that right here for the rest of the.
Rest of
You're
the
gonna
people.
give you're gonna give me a really bad edit now, aren't you?
Oh.
What do you think about Russell, man? Are y'all gonna keep him or what?
Oh yeah, he's to stay, but I definitely got to say that the pressure's on this year. I think that if we don't at least make the NFC Championship, heads are going to start to roll. It's either going to be him or Pete. And if you ask me, I'd personally say Pete goes before him.
Well, I've got Carson in my dynasty league, so I need him to step up.
Chris Carson, the running back.
Yeah,
I love that guy.
I do too. We'll see. I went zero RB in our draft dynasty startup this year, and he's who I ended up getting after taking Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, and Kyle Pitts in the first, and Terry McLaurin. So first 4 rounds, I went receiver, tight end, and he was sitting there in the 5th round. I couldn't say no.
I mean, you got a pretty solid skill group, I'd say.
Yeah. Are you a fantasy guy?
I pop my head in here and there.
Yeah.
I can never. There's too much I get too heavily invested, emotionally attached to the game, to where when I have to root for certain guys and then I want certain teams to win, it's too much to handle. So I don't know. I don't like putting myself in those positions.
That's fair. See, you understand. I get it.
What about the nightlife in Seattle? Because I asked the recent casts, and they've had their spin on it, but obviously yours was taking it back a ways. So what was the nightlife like when you were there in Seattle?
Man, we you had to pick your battles. Seattle did not want us there. Seattle's a pretty prideful town, and they were just coming out of grunge rock, man, with Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and the music scene there is just super localized. And if you're an outsider, man, what are you doing kind of in our territory? And they were kind of anti. They weren't kind of. most people in Seattle were anti-MTV. And
Really?
so, oh yeah. So if we would show up at a bar or restaurant, we'd have to call ahead of time to get permission with the cameras. And so we'd show up thinking, they knew who we were. If they saw a camera crew, they knew MTV was filming the real world. And so word had spread around. And sometimes we were not met kindly by the folks. And so we found a couple places that wanted the publicity and didn't care that we were there, and really spent our time kind of in those places.
That's interesting too, because the recent Seattle actually said similar thing, that they didn't, weren't as welcome there.
Yeah, it's just that part of the country, right? Like there's this anti-establishment, kind of mentality. Not necessarily in the south of the West Coast, but as you get farther north in San Fran and Oregon and Washington, there's a definite mentality, and it's not bad. It's not a bad thing.
What time of the, if you could recall, what time of the year would you say that you guys filmed your season?
January to June.
January to June. Okay, because I always a thing that was always on my mind when it comes to the Seattle shows was it would have been cool, because obviously how the crowd is and like the Seahawk games. It would have been cool if they had you guys go to like a Seahawk game, be in that environment. But I know that from the recent Seattle season, they tried going to like a Mariners game and they didn't want them filming at the stadium.
Yeah, no, I went to Sonics games. We went to Mariners games. We just turned our mic off.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. We hung out with some of the Seattle Supersonics. We had a radio show in town at like the number one radio station in the city, like number 5 in the country. And so we just had access to all kinds of people and seeing Pearl Jam play private shows. And I mean, it was intense. It was awesome.
A lot of my subscribers wanted me to ask you how your cast members are doing these days.
Sure. Irene, who most people ask about, is doing like unbelievably well. She and I got reconnected a few years ago, and man, she got her butt kicked after leaving the show for a while, and the way she was portrayed, and her resentment to how she was portrayed, and really what it was her resentment towards how MTV handled her being slapped by a man, which, looking backwards, man, if that happened in today's current climate, man, it'd been a much different outcome, across the boards for him and for her and everything. And so she, I don't think they knew what they were. I don't think MTV or Beanham and Murray really understood the gravity of what happened back then. And, she left as a result of that. And I think she felt pretty isolated after the fact. And you can spin it however which way you want. I mean, she knew exactly what she was doing, pushing Steven's buttons to get him to react. I don't think she thought he would hit her. But, she's grown a ton since then, and she's got a little baby, and she's doing great. So we talk here and there. David is still David, doing David stuff, and married, kids, living in Vegas, doing really well, successful. Rebecca, I just got connected with during this whole homecoming possibility for the reunion show, and she's married with kids, doing really well. No idea about Janet. We have some mutual friends, but she's haven't talked to her. And then Lindsay, couldn't tell you, haven't talked to her. And Stephen, who knows? Literally haven't heard from him. Or CT and I almost got in a fight with him at the 10-year reunion years ago, and that was the last time I saw him. Not my best behavior.
Could you potentially shed light on the situation?
No, man. I mean, we were just intoxicated and doing the red carpet, and hadn't seen Steven since the show, and I didn't do a good job of Man, loving him well, and I think he showed up. I think with I think it was his boyfriend. I'm not sure, and he was a Southern Baptist reverend, I think, at that time, or something. And I don't know. He said something that pushed my buttons, and I reacted, and CT reacted, and there's some pushing and shoving, and really immature behavior on my end and CT's. Nothing happened, and I was hoping we'd get an opportunity to do the reunion, man, because I'd love to see what he's up to, and take ownership, and for my part of being a jerk. I mean, gosh, it was, God, how long ago was that? It must have been 13 years ago. It's just been so long.
Wow.
Yeah.
I liked how you pointed out about the current climate, if that were to take place, because that's exactly what I was thinking when gearing towards bringing that topic up. Had that happened in this current state of the world we're living in, that would have been yeah.
It'd have been terrible, and I was a young 21-year-old kid, man, and I didn't handle it right. Like, I should have. They took Stephen away immediately, so we didn't even know it happened because it happened away from us. And and the way they presented it to us was, hey, there was an incident. Stephen got physical with Irene, and we're like, what are you talking about? And they show us the video of it, and it looks really insignificant in the video, and they frame it up and they say, Irene's decided to leave, but we want to leave it up to you guys if you think you feel safe having Stephen in the house, and if he does come back, then he's going to have to go through anger management and all this stuff. And they frame it up in this way to really cover their butts, I think, but also to, I think, softly land the plane with us, so that we'll be like, of course, if he's going to get help, we want him to get help, and I think for me, I didn't want to rock any boats, man. We were at the end of filming. I had a feeling that I was going to get a lot of opportunity, and I was really blinded by my own selfish ambition, and I've told Irene this, and I told her if we ended up going back on the show, like 100%, I've got her back. I'd never let anything like that happen again, and I wouldn't choose MTV over her again, because I did that, I think, because we let him back in the house, and I think he went to like one anger management course or something, and then like 2 weeks later we were done filming, and so there was zero follow-up. There was none of that stuff, and I can see why she became super resentful about it. She had every right to be. Yeah, today's day and age, man, I mean, he'd be in jail. There'd be a hashtag movement of some kind, more people would come forward and that have been abused or not. And yeah, so that's some of the stuff that reality TV and contracts today that people sign were formulated as a result of a lot of the stuff that happened on our season.
So you think with like the current state of mind that you're in now, if you take it back to that frame of mind that you had at that point, you would be much more, I guess you could say, I don't want to say helpful towards the situation, but more so, I guess, lending a hand to Irene in a way.
100%. I would love to. I would hope now that as with a more mature state of mind and life experience and understanding, not so focused in self, right? Like, to see something like that happen, I would hope that I would be more available to help her and him. To be quite honest, I mean, he was a broken mess of a guy back then, just like I was. Mine manifested itself in drinking, and his was in another way. I mean, that's the whole deal. I mean, humanity is just a mess, man. We're all broken. We're all fractured in some sort of way, and we're really just called to try to love each other in spite of that stuff and figure out a way to help each other grow and become better.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to see this homecoming thing kind of come to fruition and see these things kind of after all these years. I don't want to say put to bed, but at least addressed in some capacity, you know.
Yeah, of course. You'll like that. You'll like the next one that's coming out.
Time will tell.
Yeah, yeah.
So what about the experiences post-show for you? You know, obviously the whole 50 people want to grind to get out there in Hollywood and dip their toes into the field of entertainment. What opportunities maybe presented themselves for you?
Oh man, they were everywhere. I mean, you got to remember this is over 20 years ago. I was on a soap opera for a bit. I did a bunch of movies, a bunch of commercials. I went through Sandy Meisner's Movement Studio in New York, went through the Second City improv group, toured the country with Willie Nelson and the Dixie Chicks and '01. I had tons and tons of opportunity after the fact, and I took it serious and got into the business and turned down a ton of real world hosting reality gigs so that people would take me serious, because at that time Hollywood did not take reality stars as serious lesbians in any way whatsoever. And so for what I thought would help me actually hindered me in a lot of ways, because I'd go read for a part and the casting director would say, "Man, you did a really great job, but you're not getting cast." Well, why am I not getting cast? Like, you're too recognizable. You're Nathan. People know you from the show. Seriously. And it's like hard for because the reality show back then, it was 97 countries is what that thing was shown in. You know, the millions upon millions of viewers, I guess. Well, for whatever that means, maybe the casting director was just being kind and I wasn't that good, but which definitely could be the case. But yeah, opportunities were left and right, but they weren't. I don't think opportunities were that rampant for everybody, because I don't think everybody wanted to follow a career into that field.
What was your maybe favorite opportunity to come from doing doing the show rather?
Gosh, I don't know. My first gig was co-hosting MTV Sports and Music Festival, which was the prelude to the X Games, and I got to do the street BMX freestyle competition with Ice-T, which was, for me, like, I loved Ice-T, I loved Wu-Tang, and we were going out to Nashville for the filming, and my show was still airing currently. And I was like a kid in the candy store. I'd never been around celebrities, and now I'm one of the hosts, and I'm in the green room, and they're doing motocross jumping. It's the first time they've ever had that on TV. It was like this huge deal. I'm in the green room, and Carmen Electra is on my right-hand side, and she was like a force back in the day. You're too young. You probably don't know who that is. She's on one side of me, and then on the other side I hear like, "Yo, yo, yo, it's that crazy white boy from the real world." And I turn around, and it was Method Man and Redman and DMX. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I love you guys." They're like, "You want to party?" I'm like, "Yes, I want to party." And got to spend time with those guys that weekend. And Meth and I became friends for a little while. And so it was just neat getting to meet some authentic people in that way.
You met Kobe Bryant too?
Yeah, we played basketball together for the first real world road rules competition. We Reggie Miller and Kobe. Kobe
Wow.
was a rookie.
That's crazy. So you met DMX and Kobe Bryant both.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, we hung out with Sean, Puff Daddy a ton in New York. I mean, we were kind of in that whole. When you get into that scene, you're just kind of invited into those people, and yeah.
Adam King from the Paris season actually works in pretty tight quarters with Puff Daddy.
Oh, good. I think Janet does too. Or no, I think Janet's with Jay-Z, Rock Entertainment or something like that.
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
What about your whole perspective on, obviously you mentioned what happened with you behind the scenes with the partying on the Gauntlet. That kind of ties into the experience, of course. But I want to know kind of your thoughts on the final and how that thing went down. With Coral obviously had the spider bite that ended up costing you guys in the end. What was your perspective on that?
Man, it's been so long. I can barely remember it, except she didn't get bit by a spider. I mean, come on. Like, from what I remember, she was just out of shape. I mean, dude, we're at 10,000 feet in Telluride. It was hard. You don't know how hard that is at that oxygen level until you do it. Coral rips cigarette after cigarette. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if she got bit by a spider or not. I know that we should have never kept her, and we should have kept Theo. And the fact that people voted to keep Coral was friendship over functionality. It wouldn't have even been a close race if Theo had stayed.
Were you and the boys a little bit salty over that?
Oh, dude, I think I was way salty because we ended up coming back, catching the team, and get all the way to the end. And I was toast. And the guys doing the puzzle couldn't figure it out. And like watching Theo and White Theo come and the Road Rules crew come by and just beat us. It was devastating. It was terrible. It's been forever ago, but if she got bit by a spider, then man, I feel terrible for her. Maybe she did. But again, like it got pretty dark for me after the show, and I don't remember a ton of stuff. Love Coral. She was sweet. She got to see how crazy my drinking was firsthand, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, how so?
She just saw, man, like me, like this different guy that would come out once I started drinking, and man, it was just the farthest thing from who I am today. And I kind of joke and laugh about it, but the reality is, man, like I almost died, multiple times as a result of my drinking, and it was bad. And it was so bad that I hid it from everybody for a really long time. But, I don't think I hid it as well as I thought I did. I was 145 pounds. I weigh 205 today. It just kicked my butt until it didn't. And then, stories of redemption,
Did that taint your experience at all from the shows?
No, man. Mm-mm. The shows didn't have anything to do with that.
Well, no, your personal experience, I meant.
You mean, did the drinking taint my personal experience?
Did it make it less enjoyable for you, is what I meant?
Yeah, probably a little bit. But at the end of the day, too, you don't realize opportunities like that were coming left and right after the show. And if I'm honest, only thing I would change was perspective. If I could go back and appreciate that stuff more, I would have loved to have been able to do that. I think that's why you see so many people wanting to come back on these shows now, because they realize, gosh, man, how crazy and how fortunate we were back then to have those opportunities. And then you get away from it for a little while, and man, they come back in this different state of gratitude, and to be back in that spotlight again and to be given that opportunity again. I think that's what you saw with Homecoming and with the OG Challenge and stuff like that. We were just young kids, and we had no idea how lucky we were. We just didn't.
And that's a big thing. I feel like why the OG Challenge and the Homecoming is taking so much steam we're picking up so much steam off the ground running here is because it's really bringing people back to what made the show special to begin with. You know, we see people and their stories unfold, and we, the viewers, become invested in them and form these attachments to them as, you know, characters. Whereas, like, you know, with the newer day challenge, they're just kind of bringing random people from holes in the wall because of how many followers they have on Instagram. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. Like you said, the storylines, like the way that they used to cast back in the day was super special because they brought in, man, they had therapists and psychiatrists, and you know, they're looking at personalities and temperaments and backgrounds and like all this kind of beautiful orchestrated moves on the back end to literally put 7 people in a house. People always ask, how real was it? Man, there was nothing manufactured on our season. 0. They didn't have to. They put the right personalities together, give them the right conditions, a little bit of money in your pocket, booze in the fridge, notoriety, and then they just light the fuse. And boom, you know, it explodes. And we appealed to a plethora of individuals that can relate with Rebecca or Lindsay or myself or they. And so that's what you saw, this contagious thing. It's just, and they'll never be able to recreate that.
The first show, it was the first reality, first real reality show, pun intended, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me today and chatting. It was fun. You know, I think you dropped a lot of Easter eggs in there that could potentially pique people's interest and get them a little excited. You know, hopefully time will tell in the future. We could be seeing maybe you in some capacity. You know,
I don't know. Maybe if the phone rings, chances are good.
In one capacity or another, we could see you. The ball's definitely in their court, though.
That's right. They got it. They yeah. You know the number. Hit me up.
We're to see who makes it to the finish line first. You or Vegas?
Oh well, we won't. I will give you this Easter egg. It's not going to be us.
No,
unfortunately.
I'd say Vegas is a lot more closer to the finish line at the moment.
Totally. We got a couple people dragging their feet, so
they just got one that's kind of delaying the thing. So
they'll make it.
Well, yeah, they're inching.
There's also another one that will be before that, but you'll have to wait and see.
Well, there's another Easter egg. There you go.
I'm here for you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Well, it was great chatting with you. I'll let you go now, but definitely do keep touch. I'll let you know when this is out.
Thanks, Mike, man. Good luck with everything, buddy. Keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Take care.
See ya.